there is a sorting that is happening and going to be happening now. And we're going to sort, the world's going to shake out in some ways into people who, have some understanding of AI and people who don't have any understanding of AI. And those people are going to get left behind.
Guys ready?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. Miley got like a hit workout in for like the last hour.
Oh my gosh.
You should record that on your watch. Oh, you not have. I would totally like record that. Be like, it would ask me, Siri to ask me like, it looks like you're doing a workout. Do you want me to record that? Like, yeah, I'm just setting up the studio, Siri.
Welcome back to UNHIREABLE, your podcast for an honest take on early career. I'm Kiera, and I'm here with Kevin, Liz, and Matt.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Today, we're going to be talking about AI, which is something that Gesture's been focusing on a lot recently. But AI is developing fast. Even by the time we get this podcast out and published, a lot of things will probably have changed. So we're not necessarily here to give the latest updates on AI. I also would say none of us consider ourselves AI experts, though maybe Kevin's coming close one of these days. But like I said, Gesture has been focusing a lot on AI in our day-to-day work, with our students and the projects they've been working on. So with all of that in mind, we only made this pivot in the past 6 months. Why is that? What prompted this pivot towards AI for us?
Yeah, that I think happened when you were out of the country, right? That you came back. And we came back.
I went on vacation. Gesture was just normal Gesture, and then I came back, and then it was Gesture plus AI.
Yeah, good thing you didn't stay longer. We would have, who knows,
done
what
something
we would
else.
have ended up with. Well,
that's why I can't leave again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had honestly kind of avoided it for a while, I think, and read an article here or there or something like that. But I didn't really want to. I didn't want to have to pivot Gesture entirely, I think, is what so sometime over the summer, I realized, okay, I need to just figure out what's going on here for myself, and then just started reading stuff more and listening to podcasts, whatever. And then when Matt, that was probably, was that August? Is that when you came back? Yeah. So sometime end of summer, figured, we really need to integrate this into our work more, for a couple of reasons. One was that I felt like it was a good match for what we were doing with students, that ultimately questions about what you could do with AI, the answer would really be the same for any technology. What you could do with X would depend on what you were trying to do. And so I felt like a good place to practice mission, to really focus on understanding what you were trying to, what problem you're trying to solve. And so initially I thought, that's just a good application. We're using a project or something like that. But then also realizing that, we're working with new students now, and they're 4 years away from graduating, and it was impossible to imagine a world in which AI was not fundamentally important. And 4 years in AI terms seem almost too far to even imagine. So in a lot of ways, I felt like we were forced into it in some way. I didn't see how I could imagine doing Gesture and not addressing AI, given where they were going to be, the world into which they were going to be graduating. But so then I felt even luckier that, good thing we're already working on mission. That's a good fit. And so at that point in August, it was just, we're going to use AI for some projects, and as an example. And I think since then we've pivoted more to, this is really going to be the central part of our work for both of those reasons.
For those listeners out there, what do you mean when you say AI? Like, define that a little bit for us.
Yeah, good question. So, and I know in the beginning of, when ChatGPT just came out, which seems like sort of the beginning of the AI and the common, in the public mind sort of era. So whenever that was, I don't know, I don't even know when that was. Pretty recently, a couple years, right? Yeah. And so I know that there was a lot of discussion at that point about, that AI is more than generative AI and large language models, which ChatGPT would be an example of that. And, we've been doing AI for a long time, which is true, and machine learning, and even back into the 90s. I actually did some stuff in my own dissertation that could be sort of proto-AI. But it was really, and it's true those are related to generative AI, but they're sort of not what everyone's talking about. And so not what we're talking about. So I think when we're talking about AI and gesture, we're talking about AI tools that non-technical people would use either in everyday life or in regular part of their work, not specialized tools. So, and that's mostly generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or, Claude or whatever. So, and even that space is changing a lot, but I think that's mostly what I mean when I usually use the term AI.
Kevin, I know you just mentioned mission, which has been sort of central. And if you've been watching our podcast, you've heard us talk about mission a lot. You said AI works well for an organization that focuses on mission. I think that deserves a little explanation. What's your take on that?
I think there's kind of two ways of answering that. So the first way, and this was kind of the way we thought of initially, was that people who are going to be good at using AI will be people who understand mission. So they understand, here's some tools, here's what they're good for, here's what they're not good for, here's the problem this person has. Now I know which one to use to get whatever solution that person needs. And it won't always be AI. A lot of times it would be definitely don't use AI for this or that. But in order to make that decision, you would have to know what AI could do. And so that was sort of the simple version of why, and mission being that's a chance for us with students to practice, really drilling down to what exactly is the problem and what does success look like for that person, because that would tell you what tool you need to use. The other way gestures and mission are related to AI, which I think is a little more recent as we've kind of dug in a little bit more, which is that or is the question of what does an organization look like that can, an AI forward or an AI, an organization that is using AI in an intentional way and not just, random applications. So there, I think, too, it's both a question of understanding the organization's mission and aligning. You actually kind of got to build a system for people to learn a new thing together and share that with each other and make sure they're connecting in ways. And everyone's kind of, that's like a weird thing for an organization to have to deal with. And when new things happen, they usually aren't as comprehensive as this, and they don't come in a way that every individual is going on that learning path together. It's more often that, some new tool that, the tech department deals with, or something that just the salespeople deal with, or whatever. And this is, everyone in the organization and their life outside as well as inside the organization. So I think that it's one of the first times we've had to apply that question of mission to our own work more, and our own work in the gesture team, and figuring out how we use the tools and how we run stuff behind the scenes in gesture, and how do we keep up to date, and how much, how do we do experiments that we can, pass on whatever we've learned to each other. So that's required a whole different set of new stuff.
Well, it's like, I forget, people have attributed, AI not as inventing a new tool, but inventing like a new way of being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so sort of like, someone gave you a hammer. Think about all the ways you can use hammer moving forward. Hey, this team, you should use hammer. You should use hammer versus, hey, we have electricity now. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Right. It's going to touch everything in all of our work and all of our lives. So
in ways we haven't even thought about or imagined yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just, the landscape changes. It's going to be different by the time we finish this podcast. So.
Yeah. And that's kind of depressing in some ways, or at least what we're used to. Like, we just learned how to use the hammer.
Uh-huh.
Now you got another
You told
hammer?
me about the hammer.
I want my hammer. I don't want an electric hammer.
We know some people who are hammer-centric. We'll talk about them a little later.
There's nothing wrong with liking the hammer. You just have to keep your toolbox mindset open.
There you go. 100%.
Well, how does this fold into career? Like, how do we, not knowing what's coming, prepare people for early career? What does this mean for early career?
I think it exposes some things about, well, AI is different in that it is new for everybody. and that it's changing really quickly. So both of those things are like problematic in ways that I don't think or challenging in ways that weren't immediately obvious at the beginning. So in early career, let's say that there really was just a new hammer, and we knew what it could do, and nobody knew how to use it yet, or people, they just invented it. And we would say, okay, well, that looks like it's going to be an important thing. Everyone needs to learn how to use the hammer, and we just build that into our curriculum. And then from now on, graduates have to, have Hammer 101 and 201 and all that. And I think the problem is that not only do we not know what Hammer 101 and 102, we don't even know what the tool is yet and what it's capable of. And like you said, by the time they're a senior, it's going to be a different tool and a different application than it was when they were a sophomore or even a junior or even last quarter. Then it's really hard to say graduates need to learn these things, because those things are not knowable when they're in the process of learning them. So that's a really different, I think, world where we are used to training them in stuff we already know, and now we're trying to prepare them for something that we don't even know what it is, much less how to prepare them for it. And so, in a way, I think that that is what we've been working on, right? That is what mission and challenge and story are about, being able to adapt to new contexts. And now we've always said that's what liberal education is about, whether or not we ever actually did that. This is kind of a test. It's not really a fair test in which it's an extreme situation of people going into a world that we don't know what the world's going to be like yet. But I think it is the right time to rethink, okay, how do you do that? And that is what we're learning. Just going to wait for the car to drive by.
I like that guy's doing laps out there.
Totally. People are frustrated about AI. What am I going to do? I'm just going to drive around the block really loudly because
my muffler pack's on.
It's something I hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What'd you take for your hammer requirement? You had an easy class for hammer.
I think we're positioned. In principle, we were doing the right thing of having them deal with ambiguity and focus on the problem to be solved. And what we had before AI was a better understanding of what that would actually look like in their jobs. And now we're doing the same work knowing that we don't really know what the work is even going to be like. The one thing I would say, though, is that I think in a few years, well, again, 4 years seems like a long ways away, but let's say within this, the next couple of years, you got two candidates. One of them they're otherwise equal, both have a college degree, whatever. One of them has AI experience in whatever form and the other does not. I don't see how those are not equal candidates.
Yep.
And so it doesn't make sense for us to prepare them for a world in which we know there will be discernible advantages and disadvantages based on your experience with AI, whatever that experience is. There's a little bit of a gamble if you're going to say, this is the one part of AI I'm going to study. But I think no AI is going to be a clear disadvantage.
Well, that sort of segues perfectly into, we're struggling with this, it feels like daily, like what the landscape is on this campus with our students, with our faculty, with our staff. I have thoughts, but Kevin, since you interact with sort of a different grouping of folks, so what's your take on where it sits on campus right now, especially within our College of Arts and Sciences?
It's interesting. I think in the beginning, there was a lot of suspicion and, resistance, and that seemed like across the board, everybody, that's fine. That's natural. New stuff, hard, change is hard, all that. And, it was coming from large tech companies, so that there's a reason to be suspicious of them.
Yeah.
That's not unfounded. But I think more and more people, I think the number of people who feel like the right strategy is just to pretend to wait for it to go away, I think that number is rapidly diminishing, I would hope, because that's honestly a dumb position. I get why you would feel that way, and there's legitimate fear and concern, and I think it's hardest for people who are really expert at something already to have either have that expertise challenged or threatened, or just to go and be a not expert anymore at something that's kind of humbling in a way that we don't usually have to, especially in our own domain of work. So if you're teaching, you know how to teach well, a long time. Now here's some new tool that's like changing what teaching is. That's super annoying and frustrating if you invested a lot of time in that work and becoming good at it. But once you realize, okay, there's nothing I can do about it, there's nothing anybody can do about it, then that is really the job of teaching. That, okay, the world's changed for my students. I got to figure out what that world is and help them learn whatever they need to learn. So now I think there is a shift to, okay, how can we be supported in that and support each other, and how do we? But because it's so new, it's still not clear how that will happen. And I would say that my sense is that, like most areas, academia is changing more slowly than the outside world.
Right.
And this is not a good time for that. But we also can't really change that quickly. This might be about as fast as we're able to change, unfortunately.
Based off of the structures we have
Off the
here.
structures, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of on the faculty and staff side. And I think there hasn't been that much experience with students until we've actually had some opportunity to see that. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that feels like where we've been focusing quite a bit of our work, especially really recently. I mean, actually, right before filming this,
half an hour
ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been struck by a few things. Just seeing. I think this and again, we're working mainly with first year students, so brand new entering college students in their first year of study here. There are some folks who have been using AI since middle school.
Yeah.
Right. In some capacity, they're probably better versed and more familiar with it, and there's definitely not. I would say amongst students, the sort of ideological opposition is much rarer than it is amongst older people. Students feel more open or seem more open to at least trying it out. I also, and this is sort of my message to faculty, because this is what we've really been focusing on these last 2 weeks with our students. I think students are trying to use AI to learn and not cheat. This motivation to cheat, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It completely exists.
Yeah.
But when you task students to say, like, can you actually have AI enhance learning? I'm pretty impressed with how our students, our interns in particular, are taking that question seriously, thinking about it. And, to the point, Kevin, that you just brought up, then I start thinking, okay, if that's off the table for the job of my role as faculty member, I don't have to worry about this. What can I focus on? I actually feel like a groundswell of interest and curiosity and sort of aspirational goals for these students to think, can this change my relationship with my instructors, with faculty, to produce something new that we haven't been able to do through all of Hammer 101, Hammer 102, and Hammer 103.
Yeah, being able to close the gap for where you are with what you understand of the basic information, so that when you go into office hours or head to class, the learning has been recontextualized for where you're at. Like, you can catch up or get ahead even and have deeper conversations about things that you're learning. So I think where people get stuck is like they try one tool once for one specific thing. It does take some work to like dig in and figure out how to make AI work for you in the way that you want it to. And that you kind of have to lean into that feeling of like being curious and testing it to make it useful.
Right.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like if you give someone an opportunity to see how it can enhance your understanding or ability to do something, I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to be an AI evangelist, but it's pretty easy to see people get converted, at least to the openness of it. And they don't have that stringent antagonism towards AI.
I mean, you've mentioned in working with the students, and I think this is something that is surprising to people, that there are, because I think our default expectation with any technological innovation would be that, like, it's primarily generational. Young people get it, old people don't. And this one doesn't seem to match up that way. There are definitely people of all ages who get it and or are interested, and of all ages who
Oh yeah,
Or
resistant.
not.
Oh,
Yeah.
we do
scared.
have some students who are diametrically opposed to it. I mean, they say they don't want to use it on moral grounds.
We also have students who have obviously grown a lot in how they're using it, especially, I mean, we've had them do a few projects this quarter. And I remember when talking through with them about how to use AI or how they've used it before, they had so many limiting beliefs about what AI could do. And now I feel like they've really expanded and realized all the possibilities of it a lot more than they were before that.
But it's also interesting to see how they're learning that for themselves and from each other. Again, it goes to this point about how do we teach it, right? Which is
Yeah, I think that's what makes AI such an interesting sort of meta case, because there aren't, like you said, people have limiting beliefs, and people, including adults, everybody, comes into AI with some set of beliefs about it, and relatively fundamentalist beliefs, because we don't really know enough for anyone to have a super detailed understanding. Very few people would have a highly sophisticated understanding of it. But people have pretty strong beliefs, given how little they know.
yeah.
And the fact that it's hard for people to overcome those is in some ways an indictment of the thing that we're supposed to be doing here. We are supposed to be the place where people challenge the beliefs and look for
Oh,
ways to learn stuff. Huh, go figure.
Huh. Really?
Huh, that's weird.
Universities do that? No.
Hammer 101. No,
just-
but but I think, like Kiera said, we're lucky that you can kind of overcome that relatively quickly. So we've seen some of that growth even in a few weeks. An openness, and not like you've learned it, but really just to start to, well, maybe it's not what I thought, and that, I mean, in some ways, if that's all we accomplish, that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Well, case in point, not to timestamp this, but those of us were in a meeting less than an hour ago with a student who 2 weeks ago said, oh, one thing I'm certain of, you can't use AI to learn this. And today gave a presentation on how to use AI to learn exactly that. That he said was unlearnable with AI. And now he's like, it's fundamentally helpful. That feels good.
Yeah.
It does.
That's progress.
Yeah.
It takes like a leap, I think, to dig in and try some things. I think there's a lot of conflicting messages that students get around whether or not they should try it, because there are, they're getting different messages in every class, and that's tricky to navigate. But I think just these projects have allowed them to kind of use it as a safe testing ground, and now hopefully they can think about how to, dig a little bit deeper on their own.
I mean, I will say I am shocked with, we're not working with thousands of students. We have, dozens of students that we're working really closely with right now. How many times we have heard stories of accusations from faculty that students used AI to cheat or plagiarize, and the students are like, absolutely not, I didn't.
Yeah.
And then to have to go through these, what I imagine are just incredibly uncomfortable conversations with faculty being certain that they're cheating and using AI to unfairly get ahead in these classes when they're not. That seems problematic. It feels like the accusations of academic dishonesty being levied against students is not doing anyone any favors right now.
Yeah.
I kind of wish institutionally that would be something we'd address sooner than later, because we've seen the repercussions. Then we see students do this wholehearted pullback of
AI is bad.
I shouldn't use it ever. I should, if I go anywhere near it, I'm going to get accused of cheating. That's rough.
And when they leave, they're gonna need it, right? I mean, yeah. How do people prepare for life after this if they don't start digging around?
It's a reflection. I mean, I think the most charitable way for us to understand it for everyone, if you didn't know anything about what was about AI itself, and you just saw, these people scrambling in the way that they are, and accusations, and what you would know is that something that everyone had a shared understanding about has changed rapidly, and nobody knows how to deal with it. And that feels like what we're dealing with now. Faculty have been using certain ways of assessing things for a long time, and now they're in jeopardy. They're just trying to on the fly resort how they can measure the things that they measure learning the way they thought they did in the past. Whether or not those actually worked, they're in question now. And I think in a lot of some areas more than others, assessment itself is really in question. and many of the tools that faculty would have to see if somebody learns something, they just don't necessarily work on them anymore, or they're cheatable, I guess you could say.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean that students couldn't use them to learn, but some students could also get by. And so, it's a real sort of existential time, I think. And that existential crisis might be we have other crises going on at the moment too. So that is one of several existential challenges. And I think that reminds me of that. So it's this period of kind of chaos, and that, again, there's just one element of the chaos, but our normal reaction would be like, okay, we need to just relax, slow down a little bit, figure it out. And that would, I think, 99% of the time be the right strategy. That is not the right strategy now.
Yeah.
Because the thing is not going to slow down. If you slow down, then you're just adapting to last year's model, and whatever adaptations you make are then going to be out of, they'll be moot.
Yeah, inconsequential.
So it really requires a different approach, I think, that probably stretches even the way that we would have planned to work with our students in terms of the speed and like you said. So I think that was the other thing for me that I felt. We talked about this back in August or whenever we kind of made the pivot, which was that it was clear we have to do something because the employment market for all of our students, even graduate school, whatever, would require that we figure out how to address AI somehow, and it fit with Gesture. But also there was a sense of urgency, kind of bordering on panic. And a lot of times, I think you would be like, okay, just chill out, like we said, and don't panic. I'm not sure. I'm not saying we should panic, but that urgency was not misplaced, I think.
No.
And it is not misplaced. And complacency or slow walk, I don't think that's the right strategy at all. And so now we have to learn how to just try stuff, which is what we've been trying to work on. But even for ourselves, that is a challenge, and that is not what we're used to doing. But I feel like the urgency comes because not just things are changing fast, you got to do something, but I feel like there is a sorting that is happening and going to be happening now. And we're going to the world's going to shake out in some ways into people who, have some understanding of AI and people who don't have any understanding of AI. And those people are going to get left behind. And and what's weird is that it isn't sorted on like college graduates over here and not college, or young and old. It's like all over. And it's really, I think, people willing, like you said, to try some stuff, to take some risks, to dive in and explore. And I wouldn't say that's exactly a personality trait, but it sometimes feels that way. I think our claim is you can learn that. You can learn that. Anyone can learn to do that more. But if you don't want to do that and you're not willing to do that, I think there's a real danger that you're just going to be left behind.
Well, it definitely helps to have, I think, just opportunities to have it modeled how people are exploring, because I think that's been one of my takeaways with just trying different tools is people ask prompts in such different ways than I ever would have thought to approach it. And like we need that kind of sharing and exposure right now in order to realize what it can do for us, you can't really just learn it on your own.
No, it's a really weird case that you can't totally learn it on your own, and yet there is really no textbook. We don't have a Hammer 101 for AI, and even an 098. We don't even know.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah, it's remedial hammer. Was that like a little ball peen hammer, or like a little plastic one, the Fisher Price set?
Just a rock.
A rock. Yes, that's true. A rock. Oh, like a stick, your hand.
Like a nicely shaped rock.
Yeah, that's true. Tool use 101. Maybe like a sea otter with a rock on there.
Yeah.
Whatever they're abalone. Is that what they're? We're going off a little abalone. We should ask AI about abalone. Yeah, so it can't just be randomly trying stuff, but it also can't be waiting for someone to tell you the exact path. And that's where I think it really is a mindset question and a practice of systematic, intentional, learning in a new domain in which you don't have a lot of guidance. And so I think that's, again, what we were trying to do anyway. it is what liberal education was nominally trying to do also.
Yeah. That does set us up, though, for kind of moving forward. We know AI is going to be part of our work. It's going to be part of the work that we do with students and interns as they grow with us. I feel like we have a lot of conversations on the horizon, some that we don't even know about right now because the horizon is shifting and changing hourly for us. But I'd be curious to know, as we move forward and thinking about other podcast episodes, are there times that we can think about, to Kevin's point, the motivation, like this want to factor among students? Like, how can that be cultivated? How do we, bring that out in students? Where do we see that? That feels like a salient talking point of people grappling with early career. And also, what is it for those people who do demonstrate want to, who engage in a practice of, again, no 101, I can't give you the handbook on how to use this, but you're going to have to be intentional in combination with that, want to factor to join a community that's growing and learning as this evolves, because that's the sort of ecosystem that we're setting up here. And it's going to change. I bet if we record another iteration of this a week from now, we would probably say some new, different things, because that's how quickly it's changing. But
Right.
I'm ready for it. I threw away my hammer before I came in here today. And I've never even had a ball peen hammer. So I do like abalone, but it's expensive.
Yeah. I think it's endangered in some
Yeah, we
places.
probably shouldn't eat
We
it.
shouldn't overfish abalone. Yeah.
AI can help with that, right?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Save the abalone.
Want to hear more from Gesture? Check out the rest of the Unhireable podcast on YouTube and Spotify. For even more content, follow us on TikTok and Instagram at gesture_UW.